Everyone's been talking about really big ideas, changing huge systems, doing powerful new campaigns. I'm going to do the opposite, and I'm going to talk about really specific technical little things that I hope will be helpful anyway. So that's me, I'm Claire. I'm going to be talking about optimizing forms for opt-ins. So we're not like radically shifting the charity sector and redefining who we are, but we're getting a few more people to opt in before GDPR comes in, and maybe after GDPR as well. So what I wanted to share with you was I've been doing some testing and optimization around this for probably since last summer, and just share some test results I've got in case that's helpful for people, so you can make sure that your forms are working as hard as possible. So, first test I did was checkboxes versus radios. I work for More Onion. We have a software platform, and a lot of our clients were using checkboxes. And I wanted to see whether we could improve their opt-ins by switching to radios. So, on the left, checkbox. On the right, radios. The really cool thing about radios, if there's a cool thing about radios, which there's probably not, is that you can make them mandatory. Whereas with the checkbox, you can't, because obviously that's not compliant, nor is it very friendly. So by having a radio, people can choose no, but in order to choose no, they have to do it actively. Whereas with a checkbox, they could just choose to not engage with that field. So I was curious whether by using a radio instead of a checkbox and making people make that decision, we can increase the number of people opting in. And we did, yay, really significantly. So 15.3% of people in this test were converting or opting in with the radios, and people with checkboxes, and with the radios it shot up to almost 50%. So that was obviously statistically significant as well. So I now use radios for everything all of the time. But, and there's always a catch, having the radio and forcing people to make this decision had an overall conversion drop of around 5%. So we had 5% less people completing the form, but of those who did complete it, almost twice opted in. So considering that, potential best of both worlds, if you've already got an active opt-in for someone that's recent, you don't need to refresh it at that moment, there's no reason to show that radio to them. So you could have a radio for most people, and then for people who are already actively opted in a way that you consider to be recent and valid for what you need, you can then just get rid of this bit and have a much cleaner form. And then you don't hurt your conversions, but you do get the opt-in boost. If you're a campaigning client, and there's a few in the room, you can just do this using a URL string. You just put a couple of letters in your URL, and that will go for the people who are opted in. Second test, warning text for people choosing no. So some clients like no to be an unsubscribe, and even if they don't actually, warning text is quite useful. So if people choose no, we say, oh, do you know what no means? You'll never hear from us ever again. In the example on the screen, they don't use it as an opt-out. It's a personal decision of the organization. Some of our clients are saying, are you sure? You know you're unsubscribing, right? So we tested having that versus not having it. This text is not visible when the user lands on the page, only when they choose no. And if they toggle back to yes, it disappears again. And we found that having that warning text increased the opt-in rate by 5.5% to 6%, and that was also statistically significant. So it makes a difference. It's not obviously as radical as the first one, but it's worth doing. And finally, I wanted to use this. We've got this cool new bit of functionality in eCampaigning, which is the campaigning and fundraising platform that we have in More Onion. I wanted to use a new bit of functionality we've got called conditional thank you pages. So the way they work is that we have a branch when people take the action. So if they're not already opted in, both in the past and on that action, they get a thank you page which says, are you sure? Here are all the cool things you get from being on our list. But if they do opt in, or they're already opted in, they go straight to a share ask. So that's just the interface in eCampaigning, that's not interesting. Within that, what I wanted to test was different types of conditional thank you pages. So we have one that focuses on social proof. Like most people opted in, we had over 50%, so we could say that. Most people chose to opt in, will you join them? And the other one was, this is what you'll get if you choose to sign up, and just some reassuring information. I don't have statistically significant results. We're slightly victims of our own success on the first page, because so many people opted in on the first page. The number of people who actually got the thank you page asking them to opt in hasn't been big enough yet that we've got significant results. But we do know that it helps. We just don't know if it helps by 11% or 13%. That's okay. And then working with Glyn, I don't know if he's in the room. Anyway, working with Glyn, we did, this is also on Campaigning platform, some tests for freedom from torture, and they just tested different language for these thank you pages. And again, the numbers are relatively small, so we don't have a statistically significant result, but we do know that it's helping by around that same percent. So these are people who've just literally just said no, and are now saying yes. So these numbers are actually really good, because they're of a pot that's already not very into the idea. And that's it. If anyone wants to pick up all these things I've just put on here and some more stuff, you can get a paper copy of if you don't scribble it down. I've put a bunch on the table out there. That's it. I didn't use 7 minutes.